Okay. Business logic basically is the section which allows you to put certain logics in the application and automate things based on those logics. Okay. It's like automatically calculating the value of a field. Let's say there is a price field and then there is a tax field. Okay. Now, if you have a logic, clearly defined logic for the tax, so the tax always has to be, let's say, 10% of the price. If I have that clearly defined logic, I can automate the value of tax. So instead of calculating it manually every time, I can just make it 10% of price. So that's something which I can do, right? The same way, there are a lot of things which can be automated with the business logic. So there are four things which we are going to discuss under business logic. One is formulas. Second is validation rules. Third is, first is formula, second is validation rule, third is workflow rule, and fourth is an approval process. Okay, so out of these four, we will talk about formulas and validation rules today, and then we will talk about workflow rules and approval processes in the next session. So, how do we work with a formula? Okay. So let's start with formula. What's a formula? Formula is a field type. While creating the field, you guys might have noticed that there is a field type called formula field type. Okay. Now, if you select the formula field type, you will have the option of selecting, auto calculating the value for that field. Okay, so if you select the formula field type, then you will have to select the value for it. You have the option of defining a formula for the field value, and it will be automatically calculated. Like I was talking about 10% of the price and things like this, right? Now this formula field type is a read-only field type because the form you don't have the option of going and entering the value yourself because it is automatically calculated, right? So any field where you see that there is a very clear defined logic and this field can actually get its value with reference to some other field, you can use a formula field there. Correct? So I'll use the same example. If I have a price field and if I have a tax field, and let's say if I have a discount field, okay, if I have a tax, if I have a price, if I have a discount, and then if you try to display this, then if you try to write, let's say if you want to automatically calculate the tax, and you write a formula 10% of price. Now this becomes a read-only field because every time the value to the tax will be calculated with reference to the price. You do not have that option of manually entering it, right? So that's basically a formula field. Okay. So how do you do that? How do you create a formula field? Let's go ahead and create a formula field. So as I said, it's a field type You just have to go and create a field. The formula field needs to be created. So where do you create a field? Just go to setup, create objects, and then just go and create it in any of the object. Let's say in job application. Okay. So in job application, let's say I want to create a field called job expiry date. Okay, and expiry date should be 7 days from the or in job opening, not in application, in job opening. Okay, so I have a logic that the job opening should expire after 30 days of the creation. Okay, so 30 days from the created date it should expire. Then you just have to create a new field here. Now this here I have a very clear logic that job expires automatically after 30 days, or expiry date is 30 days from the created date. So this time you can make it a formula field. Pick the data type as formula, click on next, and say job expiry date. Okay, select the date here, go to next. Return type has to be date. Okay, because expiry date after calculation of the formula is also going to return a date, so return type should be date. Now it takes you to the screen where you have the option of writing the formula. This is where you will write the formula. So job expiry date is actually start date, sorry, the created date of the job plus 30 days, correct? You just have to come here, click on advanced formula. Okay, you will have the option of inserting the field from here. Click on insert field, the reference field. So what is the reference field I want to use? Created date. Click on insert. Okay, so my job expiry date equals created date plus 30. Is that correct? This is what I want. So now job expiry date will be automatically calculated, and it will automatically be created days date plus 30 days. If the formula is correct or not, you can just click on check syntax to check the syntax of the formula if it is correct. Okay, so if there are no errors, it will say no syntax error. So there is no syntax error for my formula. Just go ahead and save it. Okay, now if you go to your job opening object, click on new, any type of job, save. See, the created date is 28th December, expiry date is 28th of January. Correct? So the job expiry date automatically got calculated. Correct? So now if you want to edit this manually, you cannot do that. See, this is locked. Other fields you have the option of editing. You can go and edit other fields. But this field, because it's a formula field and it's getting its value from the other reference field, you cannot go and edit that. Got it? So that's basically about the the formula field. That's how you actually can use a formula field to automatically calculate things. Okay. Let's create one more formula field. We'll do it in opportunity. We have a price and we will put a tax logic there. So just go to setup, because I want to create a field in opportunity. So all that I have to do is I have to go to setup, customize, opportunities, and under opportunities I'll have to go to fields. Create a new field. Field type is going to be formula once again. Go to next. Field name will be tax. Return type is going to be currency. Click on next. Okay. Here write the formula. Tax is going to be 10% of amount. So insert the field amount. 10% of it means 0.1 into amount. Correct? If you want, you can check the syntax. It has no syntax error, which means your formula is fine. Just go ahead and save it. Right. So your tax field is also ready. Fine. Now if you go to opportunities and try to see the value of an opportunity, you will find that there's a tax field also available. The value for that tax field is auto calculated. To the sales app. See, so the tax field is available here. Amount is this, tax is 23,500. 10% of the amount automatically calculated. Fine. Now, while you're
I have
writing
a
the
question.
go ahead.
Uh, we are calculating 10% of price, right?
Of the amount.
But yeah, of the amount. But amount is a standard field. Price is a custom field. We've taken 0.1 into amount, which is a standard field. Otherwise, it would not calculate 10% of the price, right? If we have to take 10% of the price, then we have to make a price custom field
Yes.
and then apply this formula, right?
Right. Correct. So it doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's amount or price, that doesn't matter actually. Formula will work the
No,
same, right?
so in that case, we will take 0.1 into price
Right, correct. So in
in
that
the
case,
formula.
yes. In that case, first of all, you'll have to create a price field. So this is just,
Yes,
an example that I was trying to give you. So if you create the
right,
price
right.
field and if you're actually putting the price of the product in the price field, then your formula should be
Hmm.
0.1 of price. Correct. Here it is, the name of the field is amount and there the name of the field is going to be price.
Okay,
Right? Okay.
okay.
Now, this is a simple straightforward formula. 10% of the amount or price and then 30 days from the created date. This is a straightforward formula. Now, sometimes your formulas can get a little more tricky. Like now I say that if the amount is more than 100,000, then tax should be 20%. If it is less than 100,000, then tax should be 10%. So I'm not actually, I'm not making it a straightforward 10%. I'm just saying that if it is more than 100,000, then the tax should be 20%. If it's less than 100,000 amount, then the tax is 10%. Okay. Now, that is where you need a logic in the formula. It's not just going to be a simple 10%. So you need a function for this. How do we put a function into it? Same way in the formula. So all that you have to do is you have to go and edit the same formula field, which is under setup, customize, opportunities, fields. So go to the same formula field, tax field, click on edit, and we have to use an if logic here because I'm talking about an if condition. Amount is greater than 100,000, then make it 20%. Okay, so how do we do this? Now you sorry, delete this part. Here in the right hand side, you see the functions option. Okay, so all that we have to do is we just have to pick the functions from here. Which function we need? There are a lot of functions. I need if function, insert it. Okay, so if function, the structure of if function is if logical test value if the logical test is true, value if the logical test is false. So what is my logical test? Amount greater than 100,000. Amount greater than 100,000. That's my logical test, correct? You can, instead of typing in the amount, you could have actually inserted it from here. Okay. You insert the same thing. If you're not sure about the name of the field, then you can insert it from here. What will be the value if the amount is greater than 100,000? If this logical test is true, then the value will be 20% of the tax. Sorry, 20% of the amount. If it is false, then the value will be 10%. Now go ahead and check your syntax errors. No syntax error, right? So this time I've written a logic: if the amount is greater than 100,000, then make tax equals to 20%. Otherwise, make tax equals to 10%. That's it. Successfully saved. Now go to opportunities. Let's open the same opportunity. See, this time it has calculated 20% tax because amount is more than 100,000, right? So this way you can actually put your functions to make your formulas a little better. These functions can help you make the formulas a little better. Clear? Let me know if anyone has a question or doubt here on the formula thing, the way function is being used.
Uh, Just one more thing, Jeet. On the
Mhm.
insert field, you
Mhm.
get a listing of both standard as well as custom fields, or is it
Yes.
only standard fields?
No, all standard as well as custom.
Okay.
Fine. And not just standard and custom fields of the current object, the fields of the parent object are also available. So for example, if you are creating a formula for opportunity, if there is a parent object to opportunity like account is a parent object, you can get the fields
Hmm.
of that object also. You can reference that. For example, uh, now instead of this logic, you have a different logic that if the industry of the opportunity is education, then the tax is 5%. For technology, it's 20%. Now, industry field is not available here, correct? Industry field is not here.
Yeah.
So industry field is on the account, which is a parent. So to get the reference of industry field, let's say I'm actually trying to take a reference of the industry field, which is in the parent account object. See? So from opportunity, go to account. Under account, you will have industry. See?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So now you can check this also. If the account industry is something, then you know the value should be something in that case. Okay. Now there's one more thing which I want to discuss here, which is basically the functions, operators and functions. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, there's a big list of functions here, right, which can be used. Like if function, there are a lot of other functions. There are logical functions, there are mathematical functions, okay, and then there are text functions. So here you will find a link. Here you will find a link called operators and functions. Just click on this. It will open a page where you have all these operators and functions listed. All your operators and functions are listed here. Okay, all your operators and functions are listed here. So, I would not want you to go through each of the function, but this is something which you can always use as a reference point to use any of the function. Like if you click on a function, if you click on this particular function, it will give you the details of this function with an example. See how it can be used and all that stuff. Got it? So this is a very helpful link where you can get reference to all the functions. Right. So this is how formula thing works. So now the next is validation rule. Okay. What's a validation rule? Validation rule is basically a rule criteria. Like formula is a field type. Validation is a rule. Okay. And why do we need this rule? We need the rule to validate data before committing to database. Before committing the data to the database, sometimes you need to validate the data, whether the correct data or correct information is going into the uh, database or not. Sometimes it becomes important for you to check if you are actually entering correct information in the database or not. That's when you use validation. Right? So what exactly you have to do for validation rule? You just have to define two things. One is error criteria, one is error message. So what is the criteria for an error? What data should not be allowed? That's basically what you define in the error criteria. And what will be the message which will be thrown to the end user? That's error message. So these two things. For example, uh, let me go to the same job opening object. Okay. So let's say I have a logic that the start date cannot be more than 2 months from the created date. Okay, anytime a job opening is being created in the database, it should not be created more than 2 months in advance. That's what I want to ensure. Okay, anyone who is entering a job opening should enter it within 2 months of the start date of the job, for example. Okay, so now this is where you can put a validation rule that anytime the difference between the start date of the job and the created date of the job is more than 60, throw an error. So now we have to define a validation rule for it. So all that you have to do is just go to this object, scroll down a little, you will see validation rules option available here. You just need to go ahead and click on new validation rule. Rule name is going to be uh, start date validation. You can name it whatever you want. You have to make the rule active. Okay. You also have an option of keeping it inactive, but if you don't activate the rule, then it will not work. Okay. So sometimes you may have that requirement that you just want to create the rule and save it, but you don't want the rule to work right now. You might want to activate it later, so you can do that. So let me make it active. Now, so I said there are two things which you have to enter: error criteria and error message. So error condition is to be entered in the way of a formula. What is my error condition? Error condition is start date minus created date is greater than 60. This should throw error, right? So write your error condition with the help of a formula. Okay, but here your formula is not to calculate anything. Here it is just to check the criteria. If this holds true, if this is true, it should throw error message. Okay, if the start date minus created date is greater than 60, then it should throw the error message. Okay, error message, whatever you want to type, you cannot create job when more than 2 months in advance. Save it. Does it have a syntax error? Yes. So the error is basically, if you read the error, it says incorrect parameter. Okay. Why is it saying incorrect parameter? It was expecting a number, date, and it received a date time. So the error here is start date is a date field. Created date is a date time field. If you create the field types, you will see that there is a date field and there is a date time field. Created date is a date time field. Start date is a date field. So I cannot do this operation between a date and a date time field. So the alternative is to convert date time into date. This should work. Yeah. Date value, not date. Fine. So if you see this function date value function, it creates a date from its date time. Okay, so this date value will convert the date time into date. Now there is no syntax error. So start date minus the date value of created date. If it is greater than 60, I want it to throw an error. Just go ahead and save it. So we are done with our validation rule. It is active. Now if you try to create a job opening, and if you put the start date, where is the start date? Here it is. Start date, if I put in March 2016, it's going to be more than 60 days, correct? December to January is 30, and that is also 30, so it's going to be more than 60. Let's go and check. We must have made a mistake somewhere. So your start date minus created date, if it is greater than 60, Okay, now it's taking the error. Right. So see, it's throwing the error. Okay. So you can put the criteria that where you want the error to be thrown, what data should not be allowed to the user. For example, we just defined job expiry date in the job opening, right? We created a field called job expiry date. Okay. In case there's a job application being made after the expiry date of the job application, then there should be an error. Application should not be allowed. In that case, where will we create the validation rule? On the job application object. Okay, that if today is greater than job expiry date, then just throw a message that job has expired. You cannot apply. Correct. So these are the validation rules which can be used. Right. Let me know if you have any question or doubt here on the validation rule part.
Jeet, I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
Uh, Jeet, you applied a formula between two different types of field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Date versus date and time.
Right.
So, I mean, if you encounter these kind of two different types of fields and you have to put a formula in between, is there a reference point somewhere?
So the functions only. There are functions to convert one type into the other type. So basically, what I have to do is I have to convert one of them into the other type. So date and time, I
Yes,
converted that into date. So for that, there is a
right.
function. So if you go to this date and time functions, you will see that there are functions for that. Okay. Date value will convert this date time into a date. Sorry, it will convert a date time into a date. So the same way you
Okay.
have so many other functions, right? So what exactly you want to convert? You want to just take out the year from a date value. See,
Yeah.
so this is the function for extracting year from a date value. So you want to, let's say sometimes you just want to use a reference of the year, then use this. Or if you want to use a month, then use this. Get it? So for all these things, we have functions.
Okay.
And these are common things actually, like from date time to date and all. So once you have used it, you
Yeah.
don't even need to go to the function and look into it. You will remember these things, right?
Okay.
Obviously, see, I'm not gonna do a calculation between a date and a string. Usually no one will do that. I mean, you will not have that kind of requirement, right? So most of the times you might face a problem with these kind of things, like date and time, uh, pick list value and a text, things like this. You will have problem. Or currency and number, that can be, that's something where people start comparing. So that's how it is. Hmm.
Okay.
Right. So that's how we can use the validation rules. And validation rule actually, as you must have seen, that it depends a lot on the formula. The more you understand in the formula expressions and all, you'll be able to write better validation rules. Okay. Um, Again, we don't try and put too many validation rules in our application because we don't want to overload our application with too many validations, which will become a difficulty for the end user. But we definitely try to uh, put all the logical validations which might be useful for the application. So this will actually help you reduce the errors. Sometimes people might be entering incorrect information. Right? And a lot of those things can be uh, avoided using the validation rules. Correct? So more you understand about the formulas and functions, better validation rules you can write. Okay. So learning your formulas and functions properly will not only help you, do these mathematic calculations, or just use this as auto calculator kind of a field, but your formulas can actually help you automate a lot of stuff. So let me just give you a small scenario. There is this company, uh, they actually do, they get 100 inquiries in it. Okay, there's a company, they get 100 inquiries in it, and they have the sales people, the sales team available to call only 20 of them. The bandwidth for the sales team is only to call 20. Sales team can call 20. Rest 80, they just send them emails because they don't have bandwidth to call all 100. Now, this company wants to make sure that they are calling the 20 with the highest priority. Okay. Now, how do they decide on highest priority? One is they can definitely pick randomly 20, but that will not be the right way of doing things. They want to make sure that they pick 20 with the highest priorities. Highest priority for them is uh, any company with revenue greater than a million and employees more than 1,000. This is what their high priority customer will be. So any customer, any business which falls under this category, they put it as category A account. Okay. The other companies which do not meet this criteria, they are category B accounts. Okay. And their concept is that they will try and call all category A accounts every day, and category B accounts they will just send emails. Now they have two options. Either they ask their sales team that go ahead manually go and check what is the revenue, what is the number of employees of the account, and then call. It's an option available, but that's a poor option because sales team one will be wasting a lot of time going and checking these things. Secondly, he can make manual errors. He might miss out on some category A accounts. Other option is they can put a formula field. Just create a formula field called category and automatically populate category A, category B based on this criteria. So any account where the revenue is more than a million or number of employees is more than 1,000 should automatically be flagged as category A account. That's it. Now if this formula field can be put in the account object, by default you will have category A, category B segregated. Now the sales team only has to do one thing. They just have to pick up the category A accounts, see if the account is category A, and call it. Correct. So the formula field is not only for doing mathematical calculations. Logical things can also be done with formula, right? And more you understand about formulas and functions, you will be able to write better validation loops also. Got it? Okay. So that's about the formulas and validations.